Hi there. Welcome to Stars Will Align. Think of this like sitting around the cauldron with me. But instead of potions, we're working with timing, energy, and a little bit of cosmic insight. This is the audio companion to my Cosmic Cauldron newsletter, where I break down the week ahead through astrology, human design, and gene keys. Plus, a little tarot, psychic downloads, and whatever else decides to show up. Nothing here is random. There are patterns to all of this. So this is your weekly check-in with the collective energy. What's shifting, what's activating, and how to actually move with it. Let's see what this week has in store. Okay, so this week I'm feeling an excess amount of noise. And this makes sense. I mean, Uranus is now in Gemini, and that means that we have, a planet of chaos in the sign of information, in the sign of thinking and communicating. I also get that underneath the noise is a commonality of fear, which comes up later in the cards. You might be surprised by how much weird shit people do just because they're subconsciously feeling fear. Whether that's, being manipulative, tearing other people down, projecting, guilt tripping, controlling, abusing, taking advantage of, people pleasing. A lot of these harmful human behaviors are rooted in fear. And so another message I got was, creating silence inside of yourself, inside of your mind especially. And specifically, I got that phrase about a pin drop, like things being so silent, so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. And I think maybe this metaphor is important because you do need to create such a space of silence that you can really tap into the heart, that you can tap into the groundedness of the root. And it's like a simultaneous thing, the more that you quiet the mind, the more you're able to tap in. And the more that you tap in, the more you're able to quiet the mind. I said last week that when Uranus goes into Gemini, it's a perfect time to pick up a meditation practice. And I would double down on that this week. It's a great time in the cosmos, in the collective right now, to learn how to quiet the mind, to tap into the wisdom of your body, to stop relying so heavily on the thinking mind. And not saying that the thinking mind isn't important or that it doesn't have its place. It's just that its place is more of a passenger, not the one running the show, not the controller of your life. Because the mind, that's what it wants to do. It wants to protect you and it wants to control your life. And it wants to protect you in a way that hinders you from facing the fears that are necessary to really move into the type of life that you deep down inside want. So to kind of sum up the cards, underneath all of that noise is fear. We've talked about that. Getting familiar with your fear so you can tell what it actually is. You can tell when it's popping up. You can tell when it's driving your life. And then you can properly feel it so you can put it down, so you can move on and, effectively feel your emotions and then wash them away so you can focus on real solutions. So to break that down a little bit, the first card we got is I used to live in fear, so I know the area well, and nothing has changed much, right? Like it's always going to be the same old story. So focusing on our worries, focusing on our fears actually multiplies them. It was funny in the full moon workshop in Scorpio, I talked a little bit about the mythology of shadow work, using Hercules as an example, and the nine-headed Hydra that he's fighting as the, symbolic representation of the shadow. And when Hercules, goes to chop off one of the heads of the Hydra, it grows back two heads in its place, right? So the symbolic nature of this story is that when you're trying to fight your shadow, you actually multiply it and amplify it. It's actually by yielding and by accepting is when it finally loses its hold on you and it's able to shrivel up, right? So this is kind of the same story. Like focusing on your fear, focusing on your worries is only going to multiply them. So instead of fighting them, how can you accept accept them and focus on real solutions. Then we got the 10 of Wands reverse, which is essentially a card of burnout, right? Like it is a card that says, you're maybe not delegating things, you're holding on to too much, you're shouldering too much responsibility. And it's almost like a card of warning or something to take heed that if you don't figure this out, it could lead to a breakdown or a burnout. So yeah, it almost gives the vibe that this week something's got to give. You need to be asking for help. You need to drop things that aren't essential. And, if you don't consciously put something down, then the world is going to do it for you. Like that's when you're going to reach burnout. And then finally, we got the water card, which is a card of emotions. And really, it's, so like, yes, literally water. It might be a good idea this week to, take more baths or showers or get near a body of water or drink extra water. Sometimes, something that I do as a meditative practice is like whenever I'm washing my hands or taking a shower, I'm actually imagining that water cleansing me. So that could be something you try out this week. But really emotionally with water, that's what water represents, is our emotions. This is about being in spaces where you can actually feel your emotions without being on or performing or solving. It's about a cleansing, a release, a softening, like letting things move through you instead of holding on to them and storing them. Because again, like the last card, you're going to lead yourself to burnout if you're holding on to too much. Okay, now let's move on to the transits. So today, Monday, we have the moon in Sagittarius. The moon in Sagittarius craves emotional freedom. So it's kind of this feeling of wanting to go, move forward, expand, say yes, go places, see things, explore. But then we have this square going on between the planet of action, the planet of moving forward, of pushing through, and the planet that wants to expand our roots and our foundations and what needs nurtured in our life. So again, today it's a good idea to really get quiet and ask yourself, what is actually your capacity? Because otherwise you might overcommit. You might move towards things when you really don't have the foundation for it yet. You might charge forward when you really don't have, it's kind of like how the universe doesn't give you more than you can handle, right? So like sometimes we really have to focus on our private world, on our home life, on our foundations to really expand our capacity of what we can handle. That's the thing. Like I think that that's the biggest thing about Jupiter in Cancer, is that if we want to expand and we want to grow and we want to get larger than life, like let's say you're at a certain financial situation, and you're like, I would really like to expand my financial situation. Or maybe even look at where Cancer is in your chart. That might give you more details on what you're trying to nurture and expand in your life right now. And, once you kind of see what that thing is, like, for example, if it's money, do you have the, I don't want to say wherewithal, right? Like, do you have the knowledge on like how to handle an influx of wealth? Do you have the accounts? Do you have an advisor? Do you know how you're going to invest it? Do you know how you're going to spend it? Do you understand prosperity? Are you financially responsible? Again, like all of the foundations to allow this, like to nurture the foundations of what it's going to take to have the capacity to hold an influx of wealth. You feel me? So whatever it is that you're trying to expand in your life, you need to make sure that you have the capacity or the foundations to do so. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. Or if even you don't want it to happen, right? Because even if it did happen, you're going to, be over capacity. You're going to burn out. Tuesday, the moon is going to move into Capricorn, which is going to really ground us into some practicality. And then Mercury in Taurus is going to square over to Pluto in Aquarius. So this is a fixed square, which could be, some stubborn energy coming our way on Tuesday. It could have us doubling down on our opinions. But the square here brings some tension into the place of transformation. Pluto in Aquarius is the transformation of humanity, the transformation of the collective self, right? And so Mercury in Taurus bringing a square here could have our, own stubbornness and our own opinions and thinking and our individuality keep us from this collective transformation that is longing to take place. So be careful on Tuesday to not, be obsessing or over analyzing Instead of spiraling, maybe ask yourself what truth is trying to come through right now. Okay, Wednesday, Pluto is going to station retrograde. Pluto, again, the planet of transformation, again, especially when this transformation is happening on a collective level, now turning retrograde, is going to be turning that transformation inward. So this is very much an interplay between the individual and the collective, right? Like you individually have to transform in order for the collective to transform. Sometimes the collective transforming can aid in the individual transforming. So it is kind of like a both and snake eating its own tail kind of situation. But now, as we are in this Pluto retrograde for the next 5 to 6 months, this is going to be more of an inward transformation, more of an individual transformation taking place. So take the time to be noticing patterns, recognizing what's driving your desires, and seeing the unconscious motivations behind your choices. Now, this is also taking place in Gene Key 41, which is also known as the start codon gate in human design. It is the beginning of all experience. It's the spark of desire that sets the whole cycle into motion. Actually, in fact, in human design, 41 is the human design new year, or what sets off the new, wheel in human design. So, like, just as like Aries does that in astrology, the gate 41 does that in human design. So another big part of this, especially since it's, this internal transformation playing on the collective, you really could ask yourself, like, what kinds of like desires or fantasies are you living from? And asking yourself, are they actually yours, or are they inherited or conditioned or unconscious, right? Is it something given to you from the collective, from the community, from your family? Especially because this is also happening in line 4, which is very relational, very community oriented. So, you could maybe have this aha awareness that a lot of your desires are actually influenced by the people around you and your environment and your circles. Also on Wednesday, Mars is going to move into gate 42. So this is very much an energy toward completion. It's about finishing cycles rather than starting any new ones. And Mercury is going to move into gate 24, which is it's about looping thoughts, looping insights, returning thoughts, things that keep coming back to you, like mentally revisiting something. But you could have the potential for some real clarity around these thoughts, these looping thoughts, if you don't rush it or suppress it or try to get around it. Okay, so then on Friday, the moon is going to move into Aquarius, which gives us some emotional detachment, some space to see things from a higher perspective. And Venus is going to move into gate 45, which is about resources, leadership, who holds what, who shares what, money, values, power dynamics. All of this stuff might come into focus, especially in relationships or collaborations. And this is also interesting because it happens on Friday, which is the day of Venus. So it kind of amplifies this energy for us on this day. So while we have this emotional detachment, we might be seeing things from a higher perspective when it comes to this tribal energy and, kind of like our collaborations with others and our relationships with others and our community oriented focus and values. Okay, on Saturday, the sun and the earth is going to move into gates 23 and 43. And this is all about insights, right? Like 43 is a mental breakthrough, and then 23 is the ability to express those mental breakthroughs. So this is really cool. It's like if you don't have this channel normally, you get grace with this channel this weekend. So it might be like something clicks, it might be that once that thing clicks, you're asking yourself if you can actually communicate this thing to others in a way that they can receive. This is also about like communicating with others at their level, right? So like rephrasing the way that you speak in a way that's going to land for others when it's invited, of course. Don't go around forcing your insights on other people. And then also on this day, Mercury is going to move into gate 2, which brings us a lot of feminine direction and unity. It brings us into this aligned flow in life if we allow it to. It's this inner knowing of where you're being guided next and allowing your brain again to get out of the way and allow this internal compass that we all innately have to guide us and direct us into the right place at the right time. And then Sunday, the moon is going to move into Pisces, which is going to put us in a more soft, emotional, reflective space, which is so cute for Mother's Day, right? So, yeah, Sunday is Mother's Day. So, happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. When we think of that ancient wisdom and selflessness that is Pisces, this is also something I feel so innately in the archetype of the mother. So this is a very heart space day. Lots of nostalgia, connection, sensitivity. And then we're also going to have a nice sextile between Taurus and Cancer, specifically the Sun in Taurus and Jupiter in Cancer. So while earlier in the week we had some tough energy, applying to Cancer, I really think that if we move through that and we really get back down to our foundations, to our roots, to what we're nourishing in our life, this could really pay off in a nice way on Sunday, being very supportive. There's like very much a nourishment energy here, very comforting. It's the simple things in life, right, that make you feel safe, that make you feel held. It's the value of the simple things, the things you can taste, touch, see, smell, right? It's a very sensual day in general, and it's a very nourishing and caretaking day as well. So I actually really freaking think this is just so wonderful and cute for Mother's Day, because while moms kind of inherently and naturally and innately do this for others, this is a really great time to pour back into the mothers in our life and give them that same motherly care and attention that they deserve as well. Okay, this is a nice, short, simple, sweet one, and I think that that's all that was needed to be said. If you need any help actually, embodying any of the things that you are noticing coming up for you when it comes to these transits, please message me and let's set up a free consultation and talk about how I could help. And I hope that you have the best week ahead. Again, happy Mother's Day, and sending you all my love.